Monkey D. Luffy, the man who claims to be the next king of the pirates, is often compared to a modern version of the old king of the pirates, Gold Roger. However, a closer examination reveals that this comparison is far from true. Luffy has a carefree and sometimes childish demeanor that contrasts with that of Roger's strategic mind and deeper understanding, which is what makes Luffy a better fit for Pirate King and actually more capable of fulfilling Roger's dream than Roger himself. From the start of One Piece, many have been led to believe Luffy is a younger Roger due to the fact they share the Straw Hat and the Will of D, which are both extremely rare in the One Piece world, and they also share experiences, like they were both on the execution platform in Logtown and smiled before their potential death. They also both went to the Sky Island, the Moving Island Zoo, and the legendary land of Wano. But all of these things are just coincidences in the fact they took the same route, and the differences are much more impactful to their characters and the stories than their similarities are. This video will contain minor manga spoilers, but is mainly focused on the anime. Roger remains a mainly mysterious figure in the larger story of One Piece, but there is one thing that I can say for absolute certain, and that's that he knew far more than he let on. He embarked on his journey with the expressed intent to turn the world upside down, defy the world government, and prevent what he believed could be a global catastrophe. In this sense, Roger emerges not only as a pirate, but as a revolutionary and a cunning hero with a plan that he devised. He sought out the world's history and meticulously searched for weaknesses and gathered power through the knowledge of the poneglyphs and the Void Century to help him throughout his journey. But in the end, Roger believed that fate was not ready for him, and that realization stopped him from living freely. Ultimately, through his sense of destiny, he felt the need to turn himself in and disband his crew that he worked so hard on gathering in hopes that he could start a new era of piracy that would lead to people retracing his steps and finishing what he started, and hopefully having the power of the ancient weapons at their disposal. But Luffy, by contrast, is blissfully unconcerned with ancient weapons, careful plannings, or grand agendas. And if the world government was never oppressing him or his friends, he would have no reason to go after them and would ignore them altogether. This is because Luffy's character is guided purely by his desires and not his fate, while Roger was a strategic planner and tried to expose hidden truths. Luffy, on the other hand, only defies these authorities when he feels the need to, and his goal is to explore the One Piece world and have a not boring adventure. For years, One Piece has suggested that Luffy is Roger's successor. But now that we're entering the final saga of One Piece, there has been many narrative developments by Ichiro Oda that are strategically highlighting the meaningful differences between the two. Chapter 1156 and all of Elbaf show traits in Roger that Luffy either doesn't have or is lacking to cast doubt on them being spiritual successors. When Roger raised a pirate flag, it was in defiance of the world government. His mission extended far beyond piracy, and it was a revolt against the world itself. While Luffy's Jolly Roger, in contrast, is just a declaration of personal freedom, or a reaffirmation that nothing will stop him, suppress him from doing what he wants to do. Which is something that makes Luffy a far better liberator and a far better pirate than Roger, and is the exact reason why the Gum Gum Fruit chose Luffy. It's because the Gum Gum Fruit and Luffy both desire ultimate freedom. Roger had carefully planned his death and told a younger Shanks that neither of them were capable of becoming the liberators that the world needed, and instead Roger could have the son Ace, and it would be Shanks' job to find him and give him the Gum Gum fruit. And Shanks followed this plan to a T, getting the Gum Gum fruit, stealing it, bringing it back to Windmill Village, only for Luffy to eat it, and that's when Shanks realized that Roger might have been wrong all along. At the same time, there's smaller details in Roger that highlight bigger differences between him and Luffy. Luffy nearly died on Whole Cake Island over the lack of a cook, something Roger's crew never even had, as confirmed by Oda in an SBS, which again displays that Luffy's freedoms and desires to have a cook on his own crew will not be taken away even if it was Big Mom, an Emperor of the Sea. Roger also develops a crush on Shaggy in recent manga chapters, which is a stark contrast between Luffy on Amazon Lily, where he was completely indifferent towards Boa Hancock, who is the so-called most beautiful woman in the world. But possibly the most important difference between the two characters comes from something that only Luffy has, and that is territories. It's significant to know that there's all these people who end up trusting Luffy and raising his pirate flag, because it gives him something that Roger probably really desired during his journey, which is political power and a massive army. Whereas everyone saw Roger as just a strong pirate, Luffy is known as also a good person who saves countries, and this has allowed him to gather an entire army of people who are willing to die for Luffy and his cause, which is something Roger seemingly never had, because there's only been one time that it's talked about Roger fighting with someone outside of his own crew, and that's at God Valley against other pirates with Garp. The main difference between Luffy and Roger is that Roger always was caught looking back. He goes back to previous islands he's already been to. In every flashback we've gotten to see, almost every time he goes to an old island that he's already been to, like Fishman Island searching for Poseidon, or after he goes to Zoe and then goes through the entire Grand Line all again. The difference is Luffy has never gone back to an island he's already been to. He goes to Enies Lobby, fights the fight, and leaves. He goes to Fishman Island, fights the fight, and leaves. Every place he goes to, he doesn't come back because Luffy is all about pushing forward and creating a new future for yourself, where Roger is always looking at the past to see what the future has for him. So the biggest difference between Luffy and Roger is Roger wants to look at what the roadmap for him says to do, and Luffy decides what his roadmap is. And this really shows us why Oda decided to pick the story's perspective to be Luffy's and not Roger's, because Luffy's forward-thinking perspective actually has allowed him to accomplish more than Roger has, because he will, without question, go to places like Enies Lobby, or Marineford, or Impel Down, all to do what he wants to do, which is something that Roger wouldn't do. He would have to plan things out, do a pros and cons chart, but Luffy will just march forward, and it makes him a much more capable pirate king. Because in order to start a new era, you need to already be living in that new era, which is something Roger only did with his death. But that's all I have to say on the topic. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and if you've made it to this point in the video, there is no harm in subscribing. You can always unsubscribe later, but you cannot re-find this video once it gets lost in the algorithm. So thank you guys so much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day.